A man's true interest is revealed in his presence, not his words, because presence is the one thing he cannot fake, rehearse, or polish for effect. Words are easy. Anyone can string together a charming greeting or a well-timed compliment, but presence exposes what the mind tries to hide. Presence tells you whether he is genuinely drawn to you or simply passing time. Presence carries intention, focus, curiosity, and emotional clarity, and when a man truly wants a woman, it shows up before he has the courage to say a single thing. Powerful understanding begins when you stop listening only to what he says and start noticing how he is with you. Notice how he looks at you, how he pauses, how he listens, how his demeanor softens or sharpens. Notice the shift in energy when you enter the room. Presence is the silent truth a man communicates long before conversation begins. Important truth is that interest creates effort. When he wants you, his greeting holds weight because he arrives in the moment with you, fully, not halfway. He doesn't greet you while still scrolling on his phone or scanning the environment for something better. He gives you a greeting that feels like he stepped closer, even if he hasn't moved at all. His attention locks in, his voice unconsciously warms, his posture shifts slightly forward. These small, subtle changes reveal more about his intentions than the prettiest sentence ever could. A greeting is only a doorway, but presence is the actual step across the threshold, showing whether he is truly invested or merely improvising. Deep attraction makes a man become more intentional. He doesn't just say, hey, he delivers it in a way that feels specific to you. He uses your name, he smiles in a way that reaches his eyes. He slows down his pace because he wants the interaction to last. These are not scripted behaviors. They are instinctive responses triggered by genuine interest. Even a shy man displays this in his own quiet language, slightly longer eye contact, a subtle shift toward you, a softened tone, a moment of vulnerability in the way he speaks. He may not be loud or bold, but his presence leaks his desire. Attraction always finds a way to reveal itself. Strong awareness means recognizing that presence is an investment. Men show up differently for the women they truly value. They adjust their energy because they want to be remembered. They want to make a good impression, not out of insecurity but out of care. They are alert, intentional, and tuned in because they sense potential. A man cannot hide the fact that you matter to him. He may suppress feelings, avoid labels, or behave cautiously, but his presence betrays the truth. He shows up in ways he does not show up for anyone else. Clear observation allows you to see when his words and presence don't match. A man might say all the right phrases, but if he delivers them while detached, distracted, or distant, the words lose meaning. Presence always reveals the discrepancy. If his voice sounds polite but empty, if his eyes wander, if his energy feels mechanical, then no sentence can make up for the lack of genuine connection. You learn to protect yourself by paying attention to what is real instead of what sounds good. Presence is honesty without noise. Powerful intuition is built when you trust these signals instead of doubting your perception. Women often feel when a man is truly present, but they second guess it because the moment feels subtle. Subtle does not mean weak. Subtle means authentic. Real interest rarely arrives with fireworks. It arrives with quiet, consistent effort that repeats itself every time you encounter him. His presence doesn't spike one day and vanish the next. It stays steady because his attraction is steady. When a man is truly drawn to you, his energy keeps showing up even when his words remain simple. Strong self-worth helps you interpret presence correctly. You stop wondering whether you imagine the shift in his greeting because you understand your ability to feel energy accurately. You stop chasing verbal validation because presence already gives you the truth. You recognize that a man who shows up fully is a man who sees value in you, and you no longer settle for the half-present, half-interested attention of someone who treats you like an option. Presence becomes your standard because presence is the proof of real desire. Final powerful understanding is that presence is the purest expression of intent. A man who wants you shows it in the way he stands with you, listens to you, greets you, and makes room for you in his attention. Words may follow later, but presence speaks first. Presence speaks honestly. Presence speaks without hesitation. Presence speaks the truth every time. A meaningful greeting is an invitation, not an obligation, because intention has never been a contract you owe anyone. When a man greets you with warmth, focus, or a spark that feels different from the way he interacts with others, it simply shows where his interest lies, not where your responsibility begins. Important understanding starts with separating attention from expectation. His effort is his choice. Your response is yours. A greeting infused with intention is not a debt you must repay. It is only the opening note of a song, not the promise that you must dance to it. Too many women mistake a man's enthusiasm as a signal that they now need to mirror it, nurture it, or reward it. But attraction is not a duty. You never owe emotional labor for someone else's desire. Essential clarity emerges when you realize that his greeting is simply an opportunity, an invitation to explore connection if you choose to. His interest may be genuine, but your interest must be genuine too. You don't respond because you feel pressured. You respond because you feel aligned. Pressure creates distortion. Genuine connection creates flow. A man whose greeting carries intention is extending a possibility, not claiming a right over your time. The moment you understand this, you reclaim your power. You stop performing politeness at the cost of your boundaries. You stop rewarding attention simply because it's flattering. You start valuing your emotional space enough to treat every interaction as a choice. Strong self-respect means recognizing the difference between curiosity and commitment. His greeting may show he wants to know you, but that alone does not qualify him for deeper emotional access. A man can greet you with charm yet lack the consistency required for a real connection. He can be warm at first encounter but unreliable in the days that follow. If you mistake his initial excitement as proof of long-term intention, you end up giving too much too soon. When you see his greeting as only an invitation, you allow yourself to observe instead of assuming. You allow the connection to unfold rather than forcing it to accelerate. Patience reveals character, rushing only reveals illusion. Clear boundaries develop when you understand that interest doesn't equal entitlement. His focused greeting does not mean you must rearrange your time, open up emotionally, or react with the same intensity. You do not match energy, you evaluate it. You watch whether his initial warmth evolves into meaningful effort. You notice whether his greeting remains consistent or fades once he feels he has your attention. You see the difference between a man who greets you with intention because he values you and a man who greets you that way because he wants validation from you. An invitation is a gesture of openness. Entitlement is a demand for reciprocation. Recognizing this difference protects your heart. Strong emotional intelligence teaches you not to let anyone's enthusiasm override your discernment. A meaningful greeting may feel exciting because it acknowledges you, sees you, and separates you from the crowd. But excitement must never replace evaluation. You watch how he speaks, how he follows through, how he behaves when you're not giving him immediate confirmation. A greeting that carries intention is a signal to observe more deeply, not to surrender more quickly. Real attraction is revealed in repeated effort, not in a single moment of emotional intensity. Power lies in knowing that you choose whether the invitation becomes a doorway or a dead end. If his energy matches your values, the greeting can become the start of something profound. If his energy feels inconsistent or shallow, the greeting can remain nothing more than a brief, flattering moment. You decide which direction it goes. You decide whether his intention aligns with your emotional well-being. When you understand that a greeting is only a possibility rather than a promise, you stop chasing meaning in moments that were never meant to define you. True confidence develops when you allow men to show interest without allowing yourself to feel indebted to it. You understand that a man's greeting is simply an expression of how he feels, not a measurement of what you owe. His attraction toward you is his internal experience. Your boundaries are your internal strength. When you no longer feel pressure to respond in a certain way, you reclaim control over every interaction. His invitation becomes something you can accept or decline based on your peace, your intuition, and your desire, not his expectation. Ultimate empowerment comes when you treat every greeting as a mirror, not a mandate. It reflects his interest, but it does not dictate your future. It shows his desire, but it does not define your worth. It opens a door, but you choose whether to walk through it. A meaningful greeting is an invitation to connection, not an obligation to participate. And when you understand this truth fully, you never again confuse someone's interest with your responsibility. You respond from strength, not pressure, and that strength sets the standard for every connection that follows. Your self-worth determines the quality of attention you attract because people respond to the standards you set, not the traits you hide behind. Important truth begins with recognizing that attraction is not random. It mirrors what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you exude. When you walk through the world with a quiet certainty about your value, the energy you carry changes everything. How people greet you, how they speak to you, and how they choose to show up. Self-worth becomes a filter that naturally eliminates the half-hearted, the inconsistent, and the emotionally unavailable. It becomes a silent barrier that protects you from connections built on convenience instead of respect. When you believe deeply in your own value, you stop entertaining attention that contradicts it. Powerful awareness grows when you understand that people sense your standards long before you voice them. A confident woman doesn't need to announce her boundaries. Her behavior communicates them effortlessly. She responds thoughtfully instead of impulsively. She is warm but not desperate. She is open but not wide open. She is interested but not dependent. Her energy tells a man that if he wants to be part of her world, he must rise to meet her where she is, not pull her down into uncertainty. The man who respects himself gravitates toward her because he recognizes the same strength he values. The man who lacks maturity avoids her because he knows he cannot meet the standard she lives by. Self-worth is not loud, but it is unmistakable. Strong self-worth is built on internal validation. When you no longer rely on external attention to confirm your value, You stop being swayed by every man who shows interest. You stop collapsing your standards the moment you feel desired. You stop competing for attention because you already possess what you need internally. A woman grounded in her worth does not crave approval, she chooses alignment. She does not chase affection, she receives effort. She does not celebrate attention, she celebrates consistency. This shift is what separates the women who are treated casually from the women who are taken seriously. Important understanding unfolds when you recognize that low self-worth draws the wrong type of attention. When you doubt your value, you accept crumbs and convince yourself they are meals. You justify inconsistent behavior and label it potential. You tolerate emotional distance and call it patience. You entertain mixed signals and rename them chemistry. Low self-worth makes you believe you must earn what you already deserve. And the tragedy is that men who lack commitment sense this weakness instantly. They know they can offer minimal effort and still gain access. They know they can disappear and return without consequence. They know you will bend because you fear losing attention more than you fear losing yourself. But everything changes the moment you decide that your value is non-negotiable. Power emerges when you hold yourself to the same standards you want others to respect. You attract respect when you operate from respect. You attract intentional effort when you stop tolerating lazy interest. You attract mature men when your boundaries eliminate immature ones. A man will give you the level of effort he believes you expect. If he senses that you require consistency, emotional clarity, and presence, he adjusts. If he senses that you let things slide, he relaxes. If he senses that you will stay regardless of how he shows up, he stops showing up fully. Self-worth becomes the rulebook by which others interact with you. Effective boundaries form when you understand that attention means nothing without alignment. You no longer melt for charming words because you know charm is easy. You no longer fall for intense chemistry because you know chemistry is unstable. You no longer settle for potential because you know potential is not a plan. A woman rooted in self-worth prioritizes effort over excitement, intention over impulse, and consistency over charisma. She watches what he does, not just what he says. She values how he shows up, not how he apologizes. She chooses peace over chaos every time. True inner strength becomes obvious when you refuse to negotiate with your worthiness. You stop accepting behavior that drains you. You stop chasing after men who don't show up. You stop clinging to situations that confuse you. You release what doesn't honor you, even when it is difficult. This is the moment the quality of attention you receive transforms. You start attracting men who value accountability, emotional intelligence, and genuine connection. You start attracting men who rise rather than men who retreat. You start attracting men who know that your self-worth demands their best. Self-worth is not merely a feeling. It is a force that shapes every connection you allow into your life. Charm starts the connection, but consistency proves character, because first impressions are effortless while sustained effort is the true reflection of a man's intentions. Important clarity begins the moment you stop being impressed by what someone can do once and start paying attention to what they can do repeatedly. Charm is exciting, intoxicating, and magnetic, but it is also temporary. Anyone can be charming when motivation is high, when emotions are fresh, or when attention is new. Charm is not the measurement of who a man is, it is only the preview. What he chooses to do consistently reveals whether his interest is genuine or simply driven by impulse, ego, or convenience. Consistency is the bridge between words and actions, and it is the only reliable indicator of emotional maturity. Strong wisdom arrives when you recognize that charm can be a performance. It can be intentional or unconscious, but it can still be a performance. Men often show their brightest version at the beginning because beginnings require little sacrifice. They feel excitement, curiosity, and attraction, and these emotions naturally fuel effort. But real connection is not built on temporary enthusiasm, it is built on the willingness to show up even when the initial thrill settles. A charming man may know how to impress you, but a consistent man knows how to choose you. Charm attracts you, but consistency protects you. Charm catches your attention, but consistency earns your trust. Charm creates butterflies, but consistency creates safety. Important understanding deepens when you start watching for patterns rather than moments. A charming message once a week means nothing if the rest of the week is filled with silence. A sweet compliment means nothing if his actions contradict his words. A warm greeting means nothing if he disappears when effort requires accountability. Patterns reveal intentions far more clearly than promises. A man who is serious will naturally create a rhythm with you, steady communication, intentional connection, and reliable presence. He won't leave you guessing, wondering, or overthinking. Consistency removes confusion because real interest is persistent, not sporadic. Powerful discernment shows up when you stop falling for emotional spikes and start valuing emotional stability. A man who genuinely cares doesn't only show up when he feels like it. He doesn't only appear when he needs validation. He doesn't only return when he fears losing access. His consistency is not conditional, it is intentional. He chooses to be steady because he understands that real connection requires reliability. Emotional intelligence teaches you that consistency is not about intensity. It's about regularity. It's about being someone whose effort doesn't disappear the moment comfort sets in. Essential strength builds when you no longer romanticize effort that lacks follow-through. You learn that a man who loves the chase will always charm you, but only a man who values partnership will stay consistent after the chase ends. You stop rewarding charm as if it is enough. You stop interpreting excitement as loyalty. You stop confusing potential with readiness. Charm can light the spark, but if consistency doesn't feed it, the fire will burn out quickly. A man's character is shown in what he does repeatedly, especially when it is no longer convenient. Important self-respect forms when you hold men accountable to the level of effort they introduced. If he began with effort, respect yourself enough to require effort. If he began with time, require time. If he began with intention, require intention. Do not let someone downgrade their behavior while still expecting the same access to your heart. Consistency is not about perfection, it is about commitment. You are not asking for too much when you require someone to show up the way they said they would. You are simply refusing to be in a relationship where emotional attention is unstable. Strong emotional boundaries develop when you trust what a man proves instead of what he promises. Promises live in the future, consistency lives in the present. Promises require no accountability, consistency requires daily intention. Promises are easy to make, consistency is hard to fake. A man may promise to change, but only consistency shows whether he will. He may promise clarity, but only consistency reveals whether he can deliver it. He may promise effort, but only consistency demonstrates the depth of his care. Final powerful understanding is that charm may pull you towards someone, but consistency determines whether they deserve to stay. Anyone can shine in the beginning, but only character shines over time. Consistency is love, respect, effort, and intention translated into action. It is the quiet proof of what someone truly feels. Charm can awaken your heart, but consistency is what protects it. Confidence elevates every interaction because it reshapes the entire emotional landscape between you and the person standing in front of you. Important truth begins with understanding that confidence is not loud, dramatic, or forceful. Real confidence is calm. It is the quiet certainty that you do not need to chase, prove, impress, or outperform anyone to earn their interest. When you respond to a man with confidence, you communicate that you see your own value clearly, so clearly that you don't depend on his reaction to validate it. This inner certainty transforms the dynamic instantly because confidence shifts the balance from desperation to dignity, from anxiety to clarity, from insecurity to self-respect. Powerful connection forms when a confident woman interacts with someone who is interested in her. She doesn't shrink because she's afraid of being too much, and she doesn't exaggerate herself because she's afraid of being too little. She shows up as she is, grounded, open, steady. Confidence allows her to listen without seeing everything as a test. It allows her to speak without editing her authentic self. It allows her to express interest without losing power, because she knows interest and availability are not the same thing. Interest is a choice, availability is a boundary. Confidence gives her the wisdom to offer the first without sacrificing the second. Important understanding appears when you realize that insecurity creates a different version of you, one that reacts instead of responds. An insecure greeting becomes tense, rushed, or overly enthusiastic, as though you're trying to earn approval instead of simply offering your presence. Insecurity makes you overthink your tone, your timing, your message, your expression. It makes you fear silence. It makes you chase clarity before connection even begins. Men sense this instantly. They feel when your behavior comes from fear instead of value. Confidence, however, flips the energy. A confident woman doesn't fear silence because she trusts her worth. She doesn't rush responses because she respects her own pace. She doesn't pressure the connection because she trusts that what is meant for her will not require begging. Strong self-belief creates an energy that draws people in effortlessly. Confidence is magnetic because it signals emotional safety. People feel more comfortable around someone who is comfortable within themselves. A confident woman gives off the impression that she is emotionally anchored. She won't crumble under rejection. She won't cling for validation, and she won't spiral into overthinking. This stability makes men approach her with more respect, more intention, and more sincerity. Confidence sets the tone for how others treat you because it sets the tone for how you treat yourself. Power emerges when confidence reshapes your boundaries. Every interaction becomes healthier because you no longer seek to impress, you seek to connect. You no longer tolerate disrespect. You distance yourself quickly. You no longer accept inconsistency. You require follow-through. Confidence is not about arrogance. It is about standards. It is about knowing what you bring to the table and refusing to sit at tables where respect is optional. When you respond with confidence, you signal that your attention is not freely given, It is earned, and this naturally elevates the behavior of anyone who genuinely wants to connect with you. Important emotional maturity unfolds when confidence becomes part of your communication. You become clearer, you express your needs without fear. You tell someone when something bothers you without dramatizing or shrinking. You don't manipulate, test, or play games because confidence doesn't need games to feel powerful. You communicate honestly because honesty is your strength, not your vulnerability. This authenticity filters out incompatible people quickly. A man who values depth will lean into this type of energy. A man who fears accountability will fade away. Confidence saves you time by attracting the right people and exposing the wrong ones. Deep empowerment appears when you realize that confidence is not about perfection, it is about presence. You don't need flawless makeup, the perfect outfit, or the right words. You only need to show up fully, grounded in the truth that your value is not negotiable. Confidence allows you to enjoy interactions without clinging to outcomes. It allows you to flirt without fear, connect without pressure, and walk away without regret. You understand that whether someone stays or leaves does not change your worth, it only reveals theirs. Final powerful understanding that confidence elevates every interaction because it elevates you. It aligns your energy, your boundaries, your standards, and your presence. It transforms your greeting from something you offer anxiously into something you offer intentionally. Confidence makes you unforgettable not because you try to shine, but because you no longer dim yourself. You hold the power to choose who earns access to you, because connection is never something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you. Important truth begins when you realize that your attention, your time, your energy, and your emotional world are not open fields where anyone can enter freely. They are gated spaces, and you hold the key. A man's greeting, his interest, or even his attraction does not automatically give him a pass into your heart. Interest is not qualification. Desire is not proof. Attention is not commitment. You decide whose behavior aligns with your standards, whose effort honors your value, and whose presence is worthy of being allowed deeper into your life. Strong awareness forms when you stop seeing yourself as someone waiting to be chosen. Instead, you become the person who evaluates. You become the one who observes whether his actions match his words, whether his consistency matches his charm, whether his respect matches his attraction. You stop being reactive and start being selective. A man's desire for you is not enough. You want to see his discipline, his character, his integrity, and his emotional maturity. You understand that any man can want you, but not every man can handle the responsibility of having access to you. Powerful discernment shows up when you refuse to let flattery override logic. You stop mistaking attention for value. You stop confusing emotion with devotion. You stop believing that because someone desires you intensely, they must deserve you automatically. Access is not earned through intensity. It is earned through sincerity, accountability, and consistency. A man may be attracted to your beauty, but that does not mean he has the capacity to honor your soul. When you choose who gains access, you protect yourself from men who want the thrill of you, but not the responsibility of you. Important emotional strength emerges when you understand that saying no is just as powerful as saying yes. The ability to walk away from what feels exciting but not aligned is the difference between a woman who survives love and a woman who thrives in it. You stop entertaining men who communicate only when it's convenient. You stop accepting effort that fluctuates. You stop giving chances to men who return only when their ego needs refueling. You no longer give access to people who drain you emotionally, confuse you mentally, or disrespect you subtly. Your refusal becomes your protection. Deep self-respect grows when you create standards not to intimidate men but to honor yourself. Standards are boundaries shaped by your experiences, your values, and your emotional needs. They are not walls. You are not blocking love. You are filtering it. Standards ensure that the only men who reach you are the ones willing to rise, the ones willing to show up with intentional effort, the ones capable of seeing your worth without needing you to prove it. You choose men who add stability, not chaos, clarity, not confusion, effort, not excuses. Access becomes something sacred.